Have you ever wondered why, after the most profound moments of awakening, life doesn't simply become an effortless stream of peace and clarity, but instead feels heavier, more confusing, and sometimes even lonelier than before? What if I told you that the real challenge of awakening is not the awakening itself, but the silent, unspoken phase that follows, a phase where the world you once knew no longer fits, and the person you're becoming doesn't yet have a place to stand? This is the hidden terrain that few talk about, the sacred ground between who you were and who you are becoming. A space filled with both divine light and shadows you've never met before. Integration, after awakening, is not about going back to normal. It's about learning to weave your expanded consciousness into the fabric of everyday life, into conversations, into your work, into the way you love, and into the choices you make when no one is watching. And here lies the paradox. The more awake you become, the more you see, and the more you see, the more you must face. But why does it feel so hard? Why does the bliss of awakening sometimes dissolve into disorientation or emotional turbulence? The truth is, there is a secret mechanism, one that has been described in mystical traditions for centuries, that determines whether your awakening will truly take root or fade into a distant memory. This mechanism is not taught in most spiritual circles, yet it might be the missing piece in your journey. In the next few minutes, we will journey deep into this uncharted territory. Together, we will uncover 8 powerful insights and practices that will help you anchor your awakened state into the reality you live every day. You will understand why the path feels so demanding, and how this very difficulty hides the doorway to your greatest transformation. But there is something else. The second to last teaching in today's video may hold the precise key to unlocking the inner stability you've been searching for, the ability to stand unshaken in your truth no matter what storms life sends your way. Before we begin, I want to invite you into a small but powerful ritual that strengthens our collective field. Type in the comments right now, "I anchor my awakening into my life." This phrase will not only set your intention, but also connect you with countless others walking this same path. And as you like this video, you are not just supporting a channel, you are amplifying a wave of consciousness that can reach hearts across the planet. Know this, every time you interact here, you help sustain an invisible network of awakening souls. Many people use these videos as daily spiritual nourishment, and your presence, your comment, your energy keeps that shared light burning brightly. Let's make this a sacred habit. At the start of every video, write the phrase, "Let it be your declaration to the universe." Now, take a deep breath, center yourself, and open your heart. The journey begins here. 1. The shock of returning to ordinary reality. One of the most challenging aspects of integration is the sudden return to what seems like ordinary life after a moment of profound awakening. During your awakening, you may have felt infinite peace, boundless love, and an overwhelming sense of connection with all that exists. For a while, it feels like you are floating in a current of divine flow, but then, almost imperceptibly at first, you find yourself back in a world that seems smaller. This shift can feel like falling from the highest peak into a dense, noisy city where no one seems to notice the magic you've seen. The grocery store still has long lines, bills still arrive in the mail, the people around you still argue over trivial things, and deep inside, you begin to wonder, did I imagine it all? Was my awakening real? The truth is, this is not a failure, it's part of the sacred cycle. Mystical traditions, from the Himalayas to the deserts of Egypt, have long spoken of the return phase after illumination. It is the moment when you are called to bring the light you've received back into the marketplace of life. This is where awakening becomes more than an experience, it becomes a living embodiment. However, the shock comes because the mind expects the outer world to transform as quickly as the inner world did. But awakening changes your perception first, not the circumstances around you. You now carry a more refined sensitivity to energies, intentions, and truths that once passed unnoticed, and this sensitivity can make the mundane feel harsh or even unbearable. Instead of resisting this return, the secret is to see it as an initiation. Every bill you pay, every conversation with someone who doesn't get you, every moment you feel unseen, these are the hidden dojos where your awakening is tested and strengthened. The divine is not only in the mountaintop vision, but also in the sound of the kettle boiling, in the patience you show when traffic is slow, in the kindness you extend to someone deep in their own sleep. Here's a practice. For 1 week, Treat every ordinary moment as a sacred ceremony. When you drink water, feel it blessing your body. When you walk down the street, imagine each step anchoring your awakened state into the earth. When you speak to someone, silently bless them, even if their words are filled with fear or judgment. You will notice that slowly, the ordinary world becomes infused with the same light you touched during awakening. And remember, the ability to return with grace is the mark of a mature seeker. It is not the person who escapes the world who is truly awake, but the one who can stand fully in it, radiating light in the midst of noise, shadow, and chaos. Next, we'll explore another hidden challenge, one that catches most awakened souls by surprise: the loneliness that often follows spiritual transformation. Point 2. The loneliness, after awakening. One of the deepest and least discussed aspects of integration is the profound sense of loneliness that can follow awakening. You may have expected that your spiritual expansion would make you feel more connected to everyone, and in one way, it does. Your heart opens to the beauty in strangers, you sense the invisible threads connecting all beings, and you know you are never truly alone. And yet, in the human, day-to-day sense, you might feel more isolated than ever. Friends who once shared your laughter now seem distant, unable to relate to your inner transformations. Conversations that once felt exciting now feel hollow. Even loved ones may misinterpret your changes as coldness or detachment, when in truth you are simply seeing and feeling from a deeper layer of reality. This is because awakening doesn't just expand your awareness, it shifts your frequency. Imagine that your consciousness was once tuned to a certain radio station, and after awakening, you suddenly switch to an entirely different frequency. You can still see the people listening to the old station, but the music you now hear is different, and they cannot hear it unless they tune in themselves. This frequency shift often means that some relationships will naturally fall away, while others will transform. It is not a punishment, it's an alignment. The universe has a way of reorganizing your connections so that they reflect your new vibration. But in the transition, there can be stretches of time where it feels like you are walking through a desert, aware of the oasis ahead, but not yet there. In mystical traditions, this is called the crossing. The Sufi poets spoke of it as the night of separation, and Zen masters called it the empty boat stage. It is a time when you must learn to sit with yourself, to cultivate companionship with your own soul, and to trust that the right people will appear when the time is right. Here's a practice. During moments of loneliness, close your eyes and place your hand over your heart. Whisper softly, "I am with you. I will never leave you." Feel the presence within you that has always been there, the witness that watched every joy, every sorrow, every victory, and every loss. This is the companion that awakening ultimately reveals, your eternal self. It may surprise you, but when you learn to be nourished by your own soul, the external loneliness begins to dissolve. Relationships become a choice, not a necessity for validation. And those who do enter your life will meet you at the frequency you now embody. Up next, we'll explore a challenge that often works silently in the background: the collapse of old identities and the disorientation that follows. This is where integration demands courage like never before. Point 3. The collapse of old identities after awakening. One of the most unsettling experiences is watching the old you dissolve, the one who carried your name, your job title, your roles in relationships, your likes and dislikes, your ambitions, and even your fears. These were the structures you once used to navigate life, to understand who you were in relation to the world. But awakening pulls the thread. Slowly, or sometimes all at once, you realize that much of what you thought was you was actually a set of learned patterns, social masks, and inherited beliefs, and now, they no longer fit. It can feel like being stripped naked in the middle of a crowded street, vulnerable, exposed, and unsure of what to do next. The collapse of identity can be terrifying because, for most of your life, you built your sense of safety on these definitions. You knew where you belonged. You had a map of life, even if it was imperfect. Now, that map has burned, and you are walking through uncharted land. Mystical traditions have long spoken of this stage. In the Christian mystic path, it is called kenosis, the emptying out of self. In Buddhist teachings, it is anatta, the realization of no fixed self. And in shamanic traditions, it is the dismemberment of the old form, so the soul can be reassembled in a new way. This process is not about erasing your personality or becoming nothing in the bleak sense. It is about freeing yourself from the rigid identity that was keeping your infinite essence confined. Imagine your old self as a clay pot, and awakening as the moment it shatters. At first, you panic because you think you've lost the container that held your water. But then, you realize you are the water, and now, you can flow into any form you choose. Here's a practice. When you feel disoriented or lost in this identity collapse, write down on a sheet of paper all the I am statements that no longer feel true. For example, I am a perfectionist. I am a failure. I am the one who always pleases others. One by one, speak them out loud and then say, this is not who I am anymore. Burn or tear the paper as a symbolic release. Then, in a quiet moment, write down new I am statements that align with your awakened truth. These are seeds of your new embodiment. The gift of this collapse is that it returns you to the raw, unshaped essence of your being, the pure consciousness that is free to create anew. This is the point where you are no longer just integrating awakening. You are becoming the artist of your life. In the next part of our journey, we'll explore a subtle but powerful challenge that emerges after the collapse: the resurfacing of deep, unresolved emotions and karmic patterns you thought were gone forever. 4. The resurfacing of deep emotions and karmic patterns. One of the greatest surprises for many on the spiritual path is this: awakening doesn't erase your unresolved emotions or karmic imprints, it illuminates them. Before your awakening, many of these patterns were buried under layers of distraction, denial, or unconscious living. You might have mistaken their absence in your awareness as healing, but the truth is, they were simply dormant, waiting for the moment when enough light had entered your being to reveal them without destroying you. When this light comes, it acts like a rising tide in a deep ocean. Everything hidden at the bottom, the old grief, the shame you never voiced, the anger you inherited from generations before you, the fears you pretended not to have, begins to rise to the surface. At first, this can feel like a betrayal. I thought I was past this. I thought I had healed this. But in reality, what's happening is the most profound opportunity of your spiritual life, the chance to meet these energies consciously, with the presence you didn't have before. In Tibetan Buddhism, this is known as the purifying fire of awareness. It's not comfortable. Some days, you might wake up feeling raw, vulnerable, or even angry at the very process you once celebrated. But here's the paradox: the appearance of these emotions is not a sign you've regressed, it's a sign you've expanded enough to face them without losing yourself. Integration at this stage requires radical compassion. Instead of resisting the rising wave, you allow it to move through you. When grief comes, you let it cry through your chest. When anger arises, you witness it without feeding its story. You stop labeling these emotions as bad or unspiritual and begin to see them as sacred messengers, each one holding a fragment of your wholeness. Here's a practice. When a difficult emotion surfaces, pause. Place your hand on the part of your body where you feel it most strongly. Breathe into it without trying to change it. Whisper to it, I see you. You are welcome here. Imagine this emotion as a younger version of yourself finally returning home. In that acceptance, the energy begins to soften, integrate, and transform. Karmic patterns work in a similar way. After awakening, old cycles, whether in relationships, finances, health, or self-worth, may suddenly intensify. This is not punishment. It's the universe offering you a final, conscious encounter with the lesson so it can be closed for good. But now, you have the awareness to make a new choice, and this is where the real magic happens. Every time you choose differently, you are not just changing your life, you are altering the trajectory of your entire lineage, freeing yourself and those who come after you. In our next step, we'll explore something even more subtle: the spiritual ego that can quietly take root after awakening, turning wisdom into a new trap if left unchecked. 5. The trap of the spiritual ego. Awakening shatters illusions, but there is one illusion so subtle that even seasoned seekers can fall into it without realizing: the spiritual ego. Before awakening, your ego may have built its sense of worth on achievements, possessions, status, or the approval of others. After awakening, those old drivers may dissolve. But the ego doesn't vanish, it adapts. It simply finds new things to identify with: your spiritual insights, your meditation practice, your connection to mystical experiences, or the depth of your inner work. The danger here is that you can begin to unconsciously define yourself as more awake or more evolved than others. You may not say it out loud, but you might feel frustration with those who don't get it, subtly judging them, or feeling secretly superior because you see more. This is the spiritual ego's camouflage. It hides in robes of wisdom, but its essence is the same old need to be someone. In mystical traditions, this is known as the final veil. Sufi mystics warn that pride in one's own humility is still pride. Zen teachers say, if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him, meaning, even the image of yourself as awakened must eventually be let go. The spiritual ego is tricky because it feels righteous. You may genuinely be living with more awareness, but the moment you cling to that as an identity, you are back in separation, me versus them. The irony is, awakening is about dissolving the walls between self and other, not building new ones made of light. Here's a practice. Whenever you catch yourself thinking in terms of awake and unawake, pause and return to the humility of not knowing. Silently say, everyone is my teacher. I have as much to learn from them as they do from me. This softens the grip of superiority and reopens you to the mystery. One powerful antidote to the spiritual ego is service. When you place your awareness and gifts in service to others, without needing recognition, you bypass the ego's hunger for identity. You simply become a vessel for the light you've touched, allowing it to flow wherever it is needed. Remember, the truest sign of awakening is not how much you know, but how much love you embody, especially towards those who cannot yet see what you see. In the next block, we'll explore an equally hidden challenge, the tension between your expanded truth and the practical demands of human life, and how to bridge them without losing your center. 6. Balancing expanded truth with daily life responsibilities. One of the most paradoxical challenges after awakening is this. You may touch the vast, infinite nature of your being, feeling timeless, boundless, beyond all earthly concerns, yet still have to pay the rent, prepare meals, and answer emails. For some, this feels like a cruel contrast. After tasting the freedom of pure consciousness, the weight of human obligations can feel unbearably dense. You might catch yourself thinking, why does this matter? These are just illusions. And while it's true that in the highest view all forms are impermanent, integration requires learning to live fully in both worlds, the eternal and the temporary, without rejecting either. Mystical teachers often describe this as walking with one foot in the absolute and one foot in the relative. In the absolute, you are the unchanging awareness in which all things arise and pass away. In the relative, you are a human being with a body that needs care, relationships that require attention, and a society that functions on agreements and responsibilities. Neglecting the relative world in the name of the absolute can lead to imbalance, financial instability, broken relationships, even physical illness. The art is to let your expanded truth inform your responsibilities, rather than replace them. Paying bills becomes an act of gratitude for the shelter you inhabit. Cooking becomes a meditation on nourishment and love. Even mundane tasks can be infused with presence and sacredness when you see them as part of your embodied practice. Here's a practice. Choose one routine activity you usually perform on autopilot, like washing dishes or commuting. For 1 week, turn it into a full awareness ritual. Notice the textures, the sounds, the sensations. Let your breath deepen as you do it. This trains your nervous system to remain anchored in presence, no matter what you're doing. Remember, the point of awakening is not to escape life, but to illuminate it from within. The light you experienced during your awakening is meant to flow through your hands as you type, through your voice as you speak, through your actions as you care for others. The more you bridge these two worlds, the more stable and grounded your awakening becomes. You stop longing for the peak experience and begin living the continuous embodiment of it. In the next part, we'll explore another subtle challenge: how your nervous system and body adjusts after awakening, and why physical integration is just as important as spiritual realization. 7. Physical and nervous system integration after awakening. Is not only a shift in consciousness, it is a full spectrum transformation that impacts the body and nervous system in ways most people don't expect. When you have a profound awakening, your energy field changes instantly. Your perception expands, your sense of time shifts, and your body may suddenly be asked to carry a level of light, presence, and vibrational frequency it has never hosted before. But while the consciousness can transform in a single moment, the body takes much longer to adapt. This is why, after the bliss of awakening, you might experience waves of fatigue, dizziness, sudden aches, changes in appetite, or even strange sensations of heat or tingling in different parts of the body. Some days, you might feel overflowing with vitality, while on others, you might feel like you can barely move. This is your nervous system recalibrating, rewiring itself to handle the new flow of energy. In yogic traditions, this is sometimes called Kundalini integration. In shamanic paths, it's known as soul embodiment. Whatever the name, the principle is the same. The body is learning to house a new level of consciousness. And this requires patience, care, and grounding. The challenge is that the mind often wants to keep going, to meditate longer, push deeper into spiritual practices, or chase the bliss of awakening again. But your body may be quietly asking for stillness, nourishment, and slower rhythms, so it can catch up. Ignoring these signals can lead to burnout, overstimulation, or emotional instability. Here's a practice. Every morning, before you begin your day, place one hand on your heart and the other on your lower belly. Close your eyes and ask, what does my body need most today? Listen without judgment. It might be rest, it might be movement, it might be water, sunlight, or simply silence. Honoring this daily check-in strengthens the bond between your expanded awareness and the physical vessel carrying it. Nutrition, sleep, and mindful movement are not less spiritual than meditation or prayer. They are part of the sacred work of integration. Your body is the temple through which your awakened self meets the world. If the temple is neglected, the light cannot shine as steadily. When you tend to the nervous system, you also make it easier to stay present in daily life. You become less reactive, more resilient, and more capable of holding the awakened state in the midst of chaos. In the next block, we'll go deeper into something even more subtle: the grief of leaving behind your old life and the bittersweet nature of transformation, a stage many resist but that holds profound liberation. 8. The grief of leaving the old life behind. What many spiritual teachings rarely mention is that transformation carries with it a kind of grief, not because awakening is a loss, but because it requires releasing so much of what once defined you. Before awakening, your life may have been full of familiar patterns, habits, people, and places that gave you comfort. Even if they weren't deeply fulfilling, they were known, they were home in the sense that they fit the self you used to be. But when awakening rearranges your inner landscape, many of these familiar elements no longer resonate. Friends drift away. Career paths that once inspired you suddenly feel empty. Hobbies lose their spark. Sometimes even your own family may no longer understand your choices. And while a part of you celebrates this clearing, knowing it is making space for what truly aligns, another part mourns the loss of what was. This is not a sign of weakness or doubt. It is a natural process, much like a snake shedding its skin. The snake is not sad because it prefers the old skin, but because the shedding itself is an intense, vulnerable, and deeply personal transition. In mystical traditions, this grief is recognized as a sacred stage of rebirth. The ancient Greeks spoke of it in the myth of Persephone, leaving behind the world she knew to enter a new realm, carrying both the beauty and the ache of change. Shamans often describe it as dying before you die, the conscious letting go of an entire life phase so that something new can take root. Here's a practice. Create a simple ritual to honor what you're leaving behind. Light a candle and write down the names, habits, roles, or places that no longer belong in your awakened path. Speak them out loud, thanking each one for the role it played in your journey. Then, with love, release them by burning the paper, burying it, or letting it float away on water. Allow yourself to feel whatever arises: gratitude, sadness, relief, without judgment. Grief is not the opposite of awakening. It is one of its purest companions. It shows that you have loved, that you have been attached, and that you are willing to move forward despite the ache. This is the sign of a true seeker, one who does not cling to the past, but walks into the unknown with both tears in their eyes and trust in their heart. And now, as we step into our final block, we will bring everything together. We will close with a deep reflection, a final transmission of energy, and an invitation for you to carry this wisdom into your own life, the moment where your integration becomes a living, breathing reality. If you've made it here, I want to pause and honor you. Few people have the discipline, patience, and hunger for truth to walk all the way through this conversation. Most will stop at the first sign of discomfort, or when the message challenges their old beliefs. But you stayed. That means something. It means you are not just seeking moments of awakening, you are choosing to live from that place, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's lonely, even when it means dismantling everything you thought you were. Integration is the quiet, invisible work that transforms awakening from a fleeting experience into a living embodiment. It is not glamorous, it is not always blissful, but it is the path of the true spiritual warrior, the one who chooses to stand awake in the midst of life's storms, not retreat from them. I invite you, as a sign of your commitment to this path, to write in the comments right now, "My awakening is alive in me." This will tell me, and more importantly, it will tell you that you are serious about anchoring this light into every corner of your life. And I have a request. Share this video with someone who might be walking through their own silent integration. Not sharing this is like keeping a lit flame hidden under a bowl. The light warms only you, when it could ignite many others. Imagine the ripple effect if every awakened soul passed even one spark to another. If you are already subscribed to this channel, know that you are part of a circle of souls committed to raising the vibration of this planet. If you are not yet subscribed, I have to ask, why walk this path alone when there is a tribe here walking with you? Hit that subscribe button and join the network of consciousness we are weaving together, week after week. Before we close, I want you to give yourself the gift of stillness for the next few moments. As the final music plays, sit without distractions. Feel the breath in your body, the beating of your heart, the subtle hum of your energy field. Let gratitude rise for every challenge, every joy, every tear, and every moment of grace that has shaped your path. Do not pause this video. Do not break the energetic connection we've built. Just be. Feel the weight of your body anchored to the earth, your crown open to the sky, and your heart as the bridge between the two. And when you open your eyes again, remember, awakening is not a destination, it is a way of being. And every step you take in integration is an act of love, both for yourself and for the world. Until we meet again, walk gently, shine brightly, and never forget, the real miracle is not that you awakened, but that you chose to stay awake.